So once again, thanks everybody for coming to our Career Development Thursday. And today's topic, we're presenting multiple offers. And first up, we have our one and only Paula Miller, and we want to thank you. And we'll turn it over to you, Paula.
Good morning, everybody.
You're muted, Paula.
Okay. All right. There we go. I apologize. Now can you hear me? Good. Okay. Anyway, before I start this topic of multiple offers presenting to the seller, Debbie just brought up a very interesting point that some listing agents, I assume, are indicating that they are not accepting escalation clauses in their multiple offers. That's another topic that obviously is a very hot topic. And I know the Eastern Panhandle Board of Realtors is now redoing or looking into an escalation clause, because the one that we're having to use that we have right now is the one out of Northern Virginia. That's what the Eastern Panhandle Board has available to it. It would start another discussion, which we don't need to have, but something to think about. I do not like that it has on there the option of appraising or not appraising. And I think that that's probably why we're seeing listing agents that are saying they're not going to accept them, because people are escalating way high and then checking that box that it still has to appraise. That's just all that is a bid to try to get the house. And then if it doesn't appraise, then the seller's got to renegotiate anyway. And I think that's why you're seeing some of that. And I know myself, I've had that situation with some of my multiple offers and big discussions with sellers over that. So I just wanted to bring that up before we start talking about anything else. So anyway, good morning. This has been a very interesting year, hasn't it? And here we are halfway through 2020. And from Michael's report the other day, sales in our brokerage are up exponentially, much higher than we ever expected, especially in this COVID-related time that we're living in. And it has really, really prompted a lot of multiple offers. The Miller team is a strong listing company. We list more properties than we represent buyers. So we are seeing many more of these multiple offers that are coming into us. And then we, of course, have to do the negotiating with them. So it's been interesting in some of the respects, because in some respects we've been involved in a dual agency on some of the multiple offers. And when that happened, I don't know how other teams handle it, but when it happened, we immediately separate each other from the buyer and the seller. And Adam usually takes on the buyer's role, writes the contract, keeps it entirely to himself until we're ready to present. So he has no indication of what's going on with the other offers, and vice versa. I remember that Diane will probably remember this, years ago when we got involved in one. Diane brought me hers in an envelope. Remember that, Diane? And don't you open this, Paul. Don't you dare open this until you're in front of that seller, you know, because that's when we used to present in person. But and one time years ago, I had a multiple offer with Chip Pencil. And we still had fax machines then, and he was representing BB&T Bank, and I literally went to his office and said, Chip, I'm putting my offer into the fax machine. You can't see it until it's faxed to the bank and gone. And then after it went, then Chip goes, okay, well, how much was it? And when I told him, he says, you won. So, you know, you do what you have to do in order to protect your interests of your client. And obviously we've evolved now into a much more digital age. So we've evolved much more into being able to immediately transmit offers to our sellers once they come. So the two examples that I sent out yesterday, which I hope you all have, are actual cases that Adam and I were involved in and are involved in right now. Neither one of these have gone to closing yet. In both cases, as you can see, the price of these homes was hovering between $300 and $350. Both of them are in Jefferson County. That seems to be a very hot button price-wise for Jefferson County right now. And it just, if the house is in any decent shape at all, it brings out throngs of people. So when we let's start with the one that's 299 that has the 3 cases across it. Okay, if you start with that one, we had 19 showings in 48 hours. And once we started realizing that all these showings were stacking up and offers started to come in with the very first showing, the very first day, was actually a Virginia agent who worked for Pearson Smith, who called me directly and wanted to see this house. I took her out there. Once she decided she wanted it, I said, okay, stop. I'm going to send you to Dawn Dotson. Dawn is Pearson Smith here in Martinsburg or Charlestown, and Dawn will take care of you. I don't want to know anything about what you're doing because the next client I have is Adams. Adam was in Michigan. His buyer was coming. That buyer came, and we had the same situation. I assume you can still hear me. The same situation. There we go. That his buyer also was interested. So again, I said, stop, go see Adam. So immediately out of the gate, we knew we were going to start receiving offers on this property. So I had a conversation with the seller and we looked at the showings that were scheduled and we took the showings out to a time frame that everybody would have an opportunity to come in. And we then posted that showings were going to stop at, 5 o'clock on Sunday or whatever day of the week this was. And that then offers would be looked at later that evening. And anyway, that's how we started this. I put into the system that you could be in a multiple offer situation. I didn't want to automatically say, hey, we're in multiple offers, but you could be in a multiple offer situation by the time this is over and done. So I was trying to keep people informed as they come, and I love showing time in that fashion that you can go right into there and anybody scheduled to show their property, you can just click, you just send them a note. And then, so they can't say they haven't been notified. I also go into the agent remarks on the listing itself and also post any updates to it. It's becoming more and more. I mean, that weekend, I didn't leave my desk. My phone was ringing off the hook for agents calling me, asking me where they stood, how many offers have you gotten? Can I still show it? I mean, it was, we had traffic cones out of this house, literally, directing traffic in and out. I even posted how to park and where to park because the house had a long driveway. And once you got down in there, it was hard to turn around and get back out. That's how difficult it was. So anyway, when all is said and done, as you can see, we had 3 very solid offers. Every one of them had government financing, as you can see. So let's start a little conversation over looking at these offers. And does anybody want to tell me off the bat, who they think won this deal? Michael? I'm assuming Sheila has to unmute. I don't know who has to unmute you.
I'm going with 1.
You're going to go with you're going to go with column number 1. Okay. Anybody else got an answer to that?
It's Nicole. I think 1 too.
You also think 1. Okay.
I also think 1.
Okay. All right. Well, I'm going to tell you it was not number 1. It was number 2. Okay. And this is, and I'm really kind of glad that you got the wrong answer because I think it's showing us how many different ways agents are interpreting a multiple offer and how many different ways it can be looked at. Okay. Now I'm going to guess that you chose number 1. I'm not sure why you chose number 1, other than he hit the nail on the head with the price. Why did you choose number 1, Michael?
No closing costs. The other 2 are VA financing, and appraisals have been a little wishy-washy with VA. The no radon inspection, no pumping, and like number 2, without seeing the house, I don't know if there's any chance that it could actually go up to 310, 315, 320.
That's the
So
bottom.
number 1 seemed like the pretty safe way to go. And also, I guess one thing that might be noted on here would be, is the lender local or some random online person. Because that would be, if they were dealing with Rocket Mortgage versus somebody local, that would play into it for me as well.
All those are really interesting. All those are really interesting points, Michael. Honestly, between VA and FHA, I'm going to admit first up that I am not that schooled on whether FHA financing is any better than VA financing. I personally think that FHA financing has more problems that an appraiser may mark on the house. Just from history, I do not do that many FHA loans at all. I also look at FHA financing and maybe unfairly that a lot of people who use FHA financing will have lower credit scores. And maybe that's unfair. But the sellers and I had a very good conversation about all of this. Offer number 2 won the deal basically because he put an escalation clause in there that he would go up to 325. Okay. And we do feel, in this case, we did feel that the house was worth more money than what probably we listed it at $299.9 to get the buyers to come just like we did. Okay. It's on almost 6 acres. Okay. But one of the things, I mean, buyer number 2 is going to pay about $315 for this house. Okay. Because you got to take what he offered, take that closing costs off, take it back down to $300,000. So then you see that he's below the 305.9. Okay. Then you have to add in all of the expenses that he wants the seller to pay for him that the other guy wasn't asking for. So we went back and forth with the expenses that the seller had, which I'm also finding some agents do not do. They also, they just take the price, take off closing cost assistance, and that's what they say is the net. To me and to my seller, the net is what is the seller making at the table after the cost to them. And I'm finding that that's another way that they're being approached in different fashions, which could make a totally different winner in any case. Does anybody else agree with me or disagree with me?
Paul, I'll say that I agree with you. I had a very similar situation this past week. I actually had 4. They were all very close. One of them was cash with no appraisal contingency. I actually had to call Steve and talk it through with him because there were so many variables in each one of them that I was confusing myself even after my 28 years in the business. So
yeah,
be afraid to reach out to your broker or manager or more experienced agents if you have questions, because actually mine got escalated way above market price, but there's no appraisal contingency. So the buyer was willing to pay it, and they ended up paying, or ratified at $15,000 more than, and actually I had it listed, I allowed the seller to list it about $5,000 more than what my market price was. So we were already escalated, so really it's probably $20,000 over. So I agree. I mean, if you don't take, you've got to be able to take every piece of the offer. And we talked about this when I did escalation a couple of weeks ago, Paula, that it's not always the price, sometimes the terms. And I've had a seller take one of the lower offers because the terms were better.
Absolutely. That's true, Melinda. We had that happen earlier this year too. And also, if you notice in my notes on this one, the seller requested a delayed closing, and that was listed right in the listing. And as you can see, offer number 3 ignored that. The seller was not happy with that at all. They just felt that, hey, that, you know, they're not reading. And that's another problem we're having in this industry. Agents are not reading. So, you know, you get all these calls and you go, well, didn't you read what I sent you? You know, or didn't you read the agent remarks? Oh, I never read those, you know, that type of thing. So it's like, you know, how can you do your job if you don't do that, you know? Now, what Melinda just talked about is not in one of these 2 scenarios, but we have 2 other multiple offer situations right now where the price escalated above and there's no appraisal. There are appraisal contingencies, but they're still paying the price as long as it appraises for the list price or better. As long as it appraises for the list price or better, they're paying X. Counterintuitive to that, they have a stopgap on the other side. So if it appraised for X lower, okay, then we would renegotiate. So we were protecting the seller, and the buyer's agent was protecting the buyer on the other end. Does everybody understand what I mean by that?
Say it one
Okay.
more time, please.
I'm sorry?
Say that one more time, please.
Okay. All right. So let's say you have a $400,000 home and somebody has escalated up to 410. And they put an escalation clause in there to do that. Okay. All right. Well, let's see. We're not sure it's going to appraise. So let's put your money where your mouth is. Are you willing to pay 410 for it, whether even if it only appraises for 400? Okay. So in those cases, we have, yes, I'm going to pay 410. All right, now the buyer agent comes along and says, well, okay, what if it appraises for only 390? You know, then, you know, are we going to have a problem the other way? Okay, so in order to protect the buyer, there's a stopgap at 390 that they'll pay 400. If it's 400, they'll pay 410. If it's below 390, we would renegotiate. Does that make sense? We've got that going on two deals right now. One of them was a corporate relocation. So Cardis was thrilled that we protected the seller in that regard. Now we're still waiting on the appraisal results. So we don't know yet if it's going to work, but in both cases we're waiting. Oh, no. The other one, the lender waived the appraisal. It's the first time this summer I've had that. Last summer I had it twice. This summer right now, I just got a waiver of appraisal. So we don't have to worry about it. They're going to pay the higher price. Okay.
Paula,
But-
can you just quickly go through the points as to why you're going with offer 2 again? I'm looking at this and I'm hearing you, but there's a disconnect for me because I'm not quite understanding how the net on offer 2 is going to be the best net there is. I'm not seeing it.
Nicole,
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay.
Yes,
All right.
Greg?
I would say just look at the very bottom line, the escalation to $325 and $1,000 increments.
Right, but I thought the escalation has to be used in regards to other offers. If 375 is the highest, how are we going above 3075?
Because of the
Okay.
closing costs.
Mm-hmm.
You add the closing costs.
Oh, so you're technically 315.
That's what he's going to be paying. That's what he's
Okay,
going-
I did not understand that, and that's where I was confused.
So you take the 3075 and take off his 7500, which drops him down to 300, which really is lower than the 3059, obviously.
Right.
But the 3059 also had no escalation clause in it. As well as the 3059 did not ask for a radon inspection and was going to pay their own termite. Okay, and no pumping. Okay, so all those expenses that the purchaser was going to pay have to be added to column number 2 to balance out what the seller is saving with number 1 and what number 2 saying they will do.
Okay.
So,
Thank you.
okay, so we took off the 7,500, took it down to 300, okay, got it to the base, then added in the price of a termite inspection, a radon inspection. I'm sorry, not a radon mitigation. We put a radon mitigation added in. Nope, we added a pumping in, and then we added a $7,500 back, and that's how we come up with. And he would pay up to 325. So when you do all that, his offer comes up to about 315, and bingo, he's way over the other guy because he didn't put a escalation clause in.
Thank you. That helps clarify
Does that help?
tremendously. Yes, it does. I get it now.
Does everybody else agree with how we came up with that?
What if this one does not appraise though? Is there anything in
Well,
God.
we would have we would have that same problem with any of these scenarios because they're all government financing, and that's what the seller. We looked at the seller, and the seller said they felt we would have these with any of these situations because every one of them would escalate. Or I'm sorry, two of them would escalate, and one of them was over full price anyway.
So really,
So-
people that are looking at, the sellers are looking at, despite they're looking at the top line without even looking at appraisal, if it appraises or not.
They're looking at their bottom line actually.
But I mean, top line meaning the highest value to the seller without even thinking about the appraisal being in there, if it appraises or not.
They're comfortable with the fact that at 315, if it doesn't appraise, it's probably still going to appraise for at least 300. That's what they want, and they're comfortable with that. And they just like the whole picture of this second offer.
So does that mean that, do you think most agents are thinking like you, or how?
No, I do not think most agents are thinking like me. Do you? And actually on the second scenario, I'll prove that point and the second one that we worked on, because the agent that actually won the deal couldn't understand why the price wasn't higher. She couldn't understand why she wasn't paying more. And I was like, well, you're not paying more because it's based on the seller's net. And all she saw was the price less closing costs. Okay. And then escalate up. And her buyer would have paid about $3,000 more for the house. And go ahead, June. Look, we don't have you, June. You're muted.
There's still some contingencies in there, and I was wondering if you, in this instance, would you take backup contracts because of the contingencies, the home inspections, and all
I'm
that?
glad you asked that. In all of these cases, everyone was offered a backup position that didn't win. And I also call the agents that don't win. I call the agent that won, and I call the agents that didn't win. I don't text them. I don't email them. I call them. And if they ask me why, and I'm happy to tell them why they didn't win. You know, I'm not giving away the farm by telling them you didn't win because you didn't add an escalation clause, or you didn't win because, the other one did an as-is inspection. That's another thing that can win you the contest, is doing your inspections as is. I had a really good conversation with a very strong buyer agent the other day. I wanted to pick his brain on how he comes up with getting the offer for his buyer, because he's winning in a lot of cases. Okay. And he told me that one of the things that he does, if the buyer asks for any closing cost assistance, any price reduction, anything, then he has them do all of their inspections as is. Do not be asking the seller for more stuff. You're asking the seller now. If the seller gives you now, then you're done. And I think that's a great, actually, I almost wish every inspection on a resale home was as is. I wish we just had that column on that home inspection. You know what? Here's your home inspection. You're buying a used home. Have at it. Be happy when you're done, but don't be asking the seller to fix A, B, C, D. It's gotten so out of hand. And that's a totally different subject. So, June, are you still on?
Oh,
Oh, you okay. Anybody else want to say anything about this offer? Okay.
Okay. Give me a
Yeah, I
second.
guess I would have thought there with the number two asking for pretty much all the closing costs. Number one was not asking for anything, and they put down the significant earnest money deposit, that they would have been a little bit more solid. And if push came to shove, could they have paid maybe a little extra? But I guess it's all contingent. Pretty much this deal is contingent on how the appraisal rolls out. So.
And if you really look at the offer, Mike, they offered above anyway. So even though offer number 2 asked for closing costs, the other offer asked right away offered more anyway. So he was already saying, hey, we're going to, you know, every one of them was contingent on appraising. So there was, you know, yeah, and you can't really take an appraisal contingency out of a VA loan. Well, I mean, you can't take the appraisal contingency out. You could obviously mandate the buyer pay more, you know. But
Paul-
that's
I'm sorry, Paula, finish your thought. I didn't mean to cut you
no,
off.
that's it. Go ahead, Stephen.
You had mentioned
Let's
credit.
talk.
It's Nicole. You had mentioned credit as a factor, or at least your perception of the credit in regards to the loan. If somebody is getting pre-approved and has the loan, why is the potential credit a factor to you?
You mean their credit score?
Yes.
You know, that's an interesting question, Nicole. And maybe like I said at the beginning, maybe that's unfair for me to look at it that way. If they're borderline when they're pre-qualified, and typically that's what we get is a pre-qualification,
Yes.
then you get down to the 11th hour and all of a sudden you find out that something's hidden in the closet or whatever. It comes out. I don't know. Like I said, maybe that was unfair. Also, like I said, I'm not as familiar with an FHA loan, and you know, some of the things we discussed were what kind of appraisal things do they look at. This house was built like in the 80s, you know, and we did go around the house and look for, you know, GFIs and handrails and closed in back steps and, you know, things that we thought could be a problem. And actually, we just got the home inspection report back yesterday, and there was something on there that I didn't even pick up. And that was that the pickets on the railing are too far apart. I didn't even pick that up when I was looking at, you know, when we were looking at the house, it's something that the seller may have to remedy. That's going to have to be remedied, because that's going to come up. That would have come up on an FHA or a VA loan. That's a safety feature. So, so does that answer your question?
Yes, I think the most helpful part of your statement is the kind of the consideration of the pre-qual all the way through to the closing.
To the closing.
And that kind of sheds light. And for you to say it's fair or unfair, this is a learning experience, so I don't think that takes into account. But I think to think of it that way is something that I wouldn't have considered. So yes, it is a helpful answer. Thank you.
You're welcome. You're welcome. Also, in my 33 years in business, and this is a little aside, we just had our first assignment. We just had a contract assigned to someone else in the family to buy the home, and it's Adam's buyer, and Adam talked it right through and got it done. And what happened in this case, the young man that was going to buy it got hurt on the job and ended up on workers' comp. And when they went to pull his employment, it came up he was on workers' comp, and the bank wouldn't give him the loan. So that goes to show you how quickly something can just flip on you. So somebody else in the family is buying the house, and we got it assigned, and they're going to closing within about 10, 15 days. Even got the appraisal reassigned. The same appraiser went out, you know, changed the name on the contract and re-looked at the house. And so it was it goes to show you that you can work something out if on an assignment. First, anybody else had an assignment before? No?
We had them a lot there in the early 2000s. We had them a lot. A lot of people, when people were flipping, they were actually buying pre-built, and then they would reassign.
All right, so now we have offer number 2 up, okay? And also, in both of these cases, these homes were put in coming soon, okay? Man, that can hurt you and that can help you, okay? On this particular house, I had not 1, not 2, but 3 agents call me and beg me to make it live in advance so they could take their buyer in, okay? In all cases, we said no, okay? Because we had already put in there that it was gonna go live on Friday, And if you're going to really play fair with every agent, then you got to play fair across the board. Now, I told every agent they could go preview it. You're welcome to go preview it and walk around and do a FaceTime with your buyer, but it doesn't go live till Friday. You can even write a contract if you want to, unseen. You know, that's up to you. You know, but a lot of agents now, when you put it in the coming soon, they're just bugging the heck out of you to get their buyer in there in advance. So this particular home that we have up now, this one went very fast as well. There were agents already lined up. Oh, and when I put it in coming soon now, I didn't realize that it took me a little learning curve with the showing time. You can set it up to start the showings. So they can schedule the showing. They just can't schedule it till the day it's going live. I mean, they can schedule it for that day. So they can schedule in advance and be ready to go in the door the first thing in the morning. And I kind of like that feature as well. So this home was is an estate. So the seller is absentee. Again, now on this particular one, we actually had 3 offers. She totally rejected offer number 3 for VA financing. She just said no. She wasn't going to do it. She didn't want to have to come back here. She didn't want to have to spend any more money fixing anything. And she didn't want to deal with the VA financing loan when there were 2 conventional financing loans. And I will add that the 3rd one would have escalated higher than the other 2. Okay, but then we would have definitely had, it was contingent on appraisal. We probably would have had an appraisal issue. So here's the 2 scenarios here. And which one do we think won this one? Michael's got number 2 up.
I think it's number 2, but it's really, really close there. Yeah, very close.
2.
Number 2, and they paid $340.
Number 2 did win, and they're not paying $340. They would have paid $340 if you just took the $345 and took off 6. Then they would have paid $340. But you got to look at all the nets, all the other things that they ask for or don't ask for across the board. And the
I like
seller,
the as is.
see,
The
and the
as is is
seller,
good.
the seller in this case did her own charts, which I should have showed you her. I mean, she did an Excel spreadsheet that was to die for. I told her I'd like her to come here to West Virginia. I'd like to hire her. She did all of her own work, and I didn't have to argue anything with her. She pretty much had it down. She had number 2 as the winner before I even called her. She had it ready to go. And the other nice thing that she really loved about number 2 was the home inspection as is.
Yeah, I was gonna say that.
Yeah, the home inspection as is really. But no, she didn't have to pay. They didn't have to pay $340, Michael. Based on the pluses and the minuses of one has a home warranty in it, the other one doesn't. You know, one has the termite at the seller expense, the other one has the purchaser. The home inspection as is, you went back and forth with those, and the closing was the same date, the attorney was the same date, it was conventional financing. I really had the seller even took what the offer 1 was willing to pay, and it also ramps up your transfer taxes. It ramps up your commission. She had every item listed and then she had her net, what she would take off, what she would end up with on those 2 offers. So she really, in my opinion, did a better job than most agents do with looking at every item, what makes a difference. You use that escalation clause, it says right on there that it's the net. Mm-hmm. It says right on there, net.
But excuse me, I'm sorry. When you're ramping up the price, you're ramping up the commission, and that's a biggie. Yeah. I mean, if you ramp, their net. You ramp up the commission, you ramp up the transfer taxes, because all that is based on the sales price, not less the commission, not less the closing cost assistance. Now you could write something into an offer that the
that the commission be based on the price after closing costs. And I've seen agents do that too. You know, so you could make that part of your offer. But multiple offers are tough. I lost one last month where on a $450,000 home that my guys offered to pay $525,000 flat out, and they still lost. And it wasn't for price. They lost because the other contract took they didn't have any contingencies in it.
Paula,
Yes.
I'm sorry. That would be a good point there to, even with this one, well, with either one, that we will pay closing
There
costs
we go.
on listing price versus, or, you know what I'm saying? We will pay
Yes.
on closing price versus the escalation.
Correct.
I think that would be a really big one.
Yeah, and that's something a little different, a little more out of the box that somebody else might not think about.
Mhm.
And and the other thing is, a termite well, septic, and pumping is about $500, guys. It isn't like it's, it's like combined. So get your buyer to understand that, hey, if you want to win this contest, pay for all those yourself.
Right.
Now, on a VA loan, the seller has to pay for the termite on a VA loan, but you can certainly write it and then have the seller, anyway, pay for those yourself, those $500. Do the home inspection as is, take the crap out of the contract, and then hopefully you'll win the race. And if your buyer wants to escalate and it's on a home they really want and they have the money, then don't check that box that it has to appraise. Tell them, hey, you want the house? It can be yours, but you're going to have to pay the price for it, that you're going to have to pay the price you're offering. It depends on how bad they want the house. I haven't used this one recently because I haven't been working with buyers a lot. But when I used to work with buyers that were in these situations, and let's say the house was $300,000, and they were willing, I'd say to them, okay, if this house was listed at $325,000, would you still be looking at it? Well, yeah. Okay, so if it was $325,000, you'd still buy it. Well, yeah. Well, then pay the price. Then put your money where your mouth is, and if you want this house, that's what you're going to have to do to get it, or may have to do to get it. So we all, every one of us is going to lose, and every one of us is going to win at some point. But the more stuff we keep out of the contract, obviously the better we're going to be.
Number 2 is a dream contract.
Isn't it nice? Yeah, and the young agent that wrote this was fairly new to the business. I think she did a stellar job, and she kept asking me, "Are any of the offers cash? Are any of the offers cash?" No. And finally, when she won the deal, she says, "You know why I was asking you that? Because my client has lost 2 other deals that were cash. She just was so worried that I'm not gonna be able to get these people a house because they didn't have cash." And but I just thought she did a great job, and listened and brought an offer that the seller was very happy with. Okay, Sheila, do we want to open it up for any discussion, or how are we? Okay.
Let me, hold on, let me go out of here
Okay.
and find where I'm getting to share the screen, and I had a number of screens I had to share, so I don't want to mess up our, give me a second. Here we go.
I was going to say one thing that I used to have some success in was, now this was down when I would sell in Montgomery County, is I would just put in the MLS, all offers will be presented at 6 o'clock Thursday night. So they knew right there and then, get your stuff in, don't call me. And that's like Paula mentioned back when we would present in person. If they wanted to drop their offer off, great. If they wanted to show up at your office, you were going to be in there with your seller clients, and they'd get their 10 minutes to go over their offer and shoot the proposal at you.
So Michael, when you would do that, you would put that in there even if you didn't have an offer yet. you would just automatically know this was going to happen.
Yeah, there's certain properties, it's going to be a multiple offer situation. It's gonna sell quick.
Yeah.
Fortunate. I did maybe 5 times and I wasn't wrong on any of them. So, but
I think in West Virginia, we're still a little leery of that. Would you agree, Diane?
Right. Mhm.
Yeah, we're still a little leery. We're not the grown up Northern Virginia yet. You know what I'm saying? We're still a little leery of that. But as soon as one offer, I'm sorry. Go ahead, Debbie.
I saw that yesterday in an MLS listing. There's something that was listed like maybe 2 days ago, and it said all offers were in by the next day. They already had multiple offers.
They already had that. Okay. They already, yeah. Like I said earlier, if once we get one offer, we put it in there that you could be in a multiple offer situation. And I haven't had it go wrong yet, but I could. I mean, I could still end up with just one offer, so bring us your highest and best. I mean, but at least you're letting the agents know right up front, hey, you're scheduled to show this house and we already have an offer in hand. So,
Yes.
Right.
Paula, when you get multiple offers like that, do you present all the offers? Do you have agents that ask if they could present their offer, or do you present them all?
good question, June. I have not, in this market we're in now, I have not had an agent ask me that. In markets in the past, we definitely had agents that asked that question. But I have not, I don't know whether they're not teaching that like they used to in class. But I have not had an agent ask me at all. Anybody
I
else?
remember Steve telling us, insist that you can, it's up to the listing agent. He or she has to give you permission. But if you're in that situation, his suggestion was always get in there and present it yourself.
Mm-hmm.
But
Mm-hmm.
who knows?
Mm-hmm.
I don't know.
Well, and right now with the COVID going on, you'd almost have
that's
to,
a little hard.
yeah, you'd almost have to maybe do it like we're doing this right now, where you would actually do a conference or something, because when they're going to present it themselves, you as the listing agent, you still want to be there. I hope other agents understand that. If a buyer agent asks you if you can present, you still want to be there.
I think I was asking this when the world was normal.
Sure. Yeah.
COVID.
Well, good point. Good point. Yeah. It's been years since I've had this happen, but I once had an agent do that, and she brought her spreadsheet, and she even had her buyers with her. I won't tell you who it was. West Virginia agents can probably figure it out. And we had to finally put her to a stop and ask her to leave. The seller was so upset with her because she just was pushing her agenda onto them. And so it doesn't always work in your favor. You can, so yeah.
I've had them come in and say the CMA is wrong. Let me show you mine. So,
Yeah. Oh, yeah. Good point.
I think we used to, or I'm glad June brought that up. I'm going to say a couple of things, and I also want to give Craig and Melinda time if they have something they want to add to the training today. But I'm glad June brought that up because we can present it, and it's amazing the technology. We can utilize the technology today. And also, I use this in the past. I don't know if others, I've even had my purchaser write a letter and submit it also. And that has actually helped when sometimes they're not even making as much, and but when you could tug at the heartstrings, if it's an emotional thing sometimes. So I don't know if anybody else has tried that, but I have had them win by doing that also.
I just had that 2 days ago where the buyer wrote a letter.
One of these multiple offers, the buyer wrote a letter. They didn't win, but it was a great letter. But like Sheila said, in a lot of cases, it does really help. It helps put the personalization to it.
Right. Especially if they're tied to their house and they're very emotional about their house and they know somebody's going to love it and care for it. So it doesn't always work, but it's helpful, helpful many times.
I had a buyer a few years ago that had been at West Point or something. And when we went to the house to view it, that owner had been at West Point. So he did this really great letter about, you know, comrades in arms and blah, blah, blah. He got that house.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Paula, we all love you, and we have so many agents to look up to, and you're definitely one. With all your wisdom and knowledge of the years of experience. We have many, and we've asked Craig, and Melinda will say something if she has something to bring to the table also. But Craig, you want to unmute yourself and share anything that may tie in with Paula or some ideas you have?
I don't know how much I missed because the internet went down here. But, you know, in regards to the letters, I'm sitting here thinking, years ago, I had 13 offers on the property. We had 11 letters that came in. We had 11 letters. It took 4 hours to do all of the presentations. And it basically, it came down to, who do we know? They knew many of the buyers, and they knew that the one person that won had the money to pay well over and above the list price. You know, I hear everybody talking about worries about appraisals. And what I did in that situation is I had the seller actually write a letter to the appraiser, telling the appraiser what they had done to the property since they had bought it, how many showings we had, how many offers they had. Because in my mind is, you know, you want a market value. It doesn't get any better than that when you have 20 plus showings in a weekend. And I think that letter actually helped because the appraisal came in right on the money when I had agents saying you'll never get that for it. So I think that's something important to do. But I agree with Paula, get rid of that home inspection, make it an as is. You can walk on the home inspection. I think that I've gone back and said, you know, we really like your offer, but we have another offer that has that in its, and will your buyer be willing to get rid of that? And they're going to. They're going to get rid of it unless there's something really wrong with the house. You know, what did we used to say? If it has a door, it's going to sell. That's kind of where we are now. And, you know, people are going to pay. I mean, there's no doubt about it. They're going to pay for it.
I have a question.
Okay.
If you know, even if it's a house that's relatively looks good, has been well cared for, and you do overgo the home inspection, and there ends up being an unseen issue, like for some reason there's a foundation issue that nobody even knew about. What happened?
Do void only.
I'm sorry?
Do the void only inspection contingency. So they're not going to come in and ask for a bunch of stuff. And if they find something that's horribly wrong, they can void the contract.
Okay.
That's what I would do.
Craig is not saying not to do it, and I don't think Paula is either, not to do a home inspection at all. We're saying use the as is.
Void only.
Void.
Yeah.
And
Okay.
in West Virginia, it's just as is. West Virginia's addendum is a little bit different than Virginia. Paula, you can chime in. You know it better than I do, but there's one that's just as is, and actually it's two places to mark, right, Paula? As is, and then there's
As is with inspection.
Yeah, you mean, are you talking about on the West Virginia addendum, Melinda?
Yeah, on the West Virginia.
Yeah, you check home inspection, and then there's an A or a B. One is the typical home inspection, you know, blah, blah, blah. And the other one is an as is, where you're doing it for your knowledge and with the right to void the contract. And, you know, I always explain to a seller, and I'm sure you do too, you know, they're going to do it as is. If they find something that they can't live with, they're going to come back and ask you to fix it, you know, and then you got to decide, do you want to fix this or not? And if it's something that's going to keep you from selling it to somebody else, then fix it, you know? So it's a good protector, but I still have people come back and ask for things. It's not like I've never had anybody come back and say, hey, you know, and then the seller has to decide what they want to do.
Okay, thanks.
Last night on Facebook, there was a conversation about appraisals? Have they been coming in low? Did you see that?
Yes, I did.
And everybody almost,
Almost.
yes, I think except one. And that's kind of scary. I mean, because what I'm hearing here, because like I said, I've got 6 offers that have been turned down. This fireman from Arlington. And maybe
Wow.
we'll write a letter on this next one right now. But I don't know. It seems like we're kind of trying to go so high with all this right now. But then the appraisal might like really thing this and really, it seems like the appraisers right now are trying to keep the market at a certain place and not let it go wide open like it's trying to go with all these multiple offers and all these highest and best. I mean, that's
Earlier today, we were on the manager's call, and it was brought up that the lenders are projecting a market correction in the springtime, and the appraisers are getting out in front of that by being conservative on their appraisals right now. So, yeah, that's makes it tough for these multiple offer situations when you have a property that's in high demand. And normally, you know, the old adage was, you know, a property's worth what somebody will pay for it.
And what an
Appraiser won't let you pay that amount for it. So.
Yeah, and if you notice, they're still marking the box as a stable market. They're not marking the box that it's an increasing market. They're because they have to justify, you know, they're put to task as well for that, and then they have to justify that why they marked it that way. Then it's opens up another whole avenue, and probably it will end up checking that eventually, but right now, you're right. We're having a lot of, and the VA appraisals are typically the lowest.
The economy, and you just have to follow the money because, you know, our prices are going up, but then the banks, you know, they like to be tight on their money. So they're making their move.
Just a heads up, Stephen, kind of tagging on what Michael was talking about this morning on the manager's call. Stephen will put out an email, and at some point, Robin, when you see that he's posting that Robin's going to be on our Facebook group, she's going to
11
be
a.m.
addressing this.
11 a.m. today.
11 a.m. Yeah. So she's going to be on Facebook at 11
Michael
a.m.
or Stephen, are you there?
Yes, it's going to be on our Facebook group live at 11 a.m. If you guys haven't joined the group and you need a link or something, just shoot me an email and I'll make sure you're in there.
Yes. And tell your coworkers to jump on. I think Robin's going to be covering some information we should hear.
Fred, you wanted to say something?
Debbie, you're. No.
Well, it seemed like Ted was trying to jump on there a few times when somebody was trying to say something. I was just interested in what he was going to say about those appraisals and all.
Debbie, why do you think your young man has lost 6? What do you think why is he losing?
Why have we not won, or why is he moving?
Yeah, why is he losing?
Oh, losing.
Lost 6.
You see here now, some of these things here, not too long ago, we stopped with, depending upon the house and how new things are, we're doing no home inspection. I mean, you know, home inspection as is, not having the seller pay for anything. I think there's been some cash offers. I think that, and we've done 2 with the escalation clause. And one just threw it out, and the other one said we're not taking it. But I think there's been some mistakes I've made as I've listened to this today. I see how, as I was looking over those sheets of yours, I saw some difference there, and it was real enlightening. So I think part of it was me, to tell you the truth. I'm not going to say it wasn't.
Okay.
You know, but that's why I'm asking these questions, because with those appraisals and stuff, because it seems like people are just like, we're bidding high, you know, $9,000 over, but then, like you say, there's a home inspection in there. We gotta get that home inspection as long as we can, as is. And some of the other minor little things out of there. But I think that's, yeah, I see some things that I need to do. And we've got one in that right now that's supposed to be ending at 12 tomorrow. I might relook at that whole thing again and discuss with my client about if we need to do some of these inspections ourselves, if he wants them, or yeah. I just want to relook at that offer and see if there's some fat in there that we need to get out.
Debbie, why don't you reach out and get some for your next one that you're working on to Michael or Paul or somebody and just run some
review it.
Yeah, I will do that.
Yeah.
An
extra set of, I'm sorry, an extra set of eyes never hurts, especially when you're newer to this. Even when you're not newer to this, you know, how do you think, you know, I wrote this and does this sound like this is going to help me or hurt me, or, you know, so yeah, it never hurts to reach out to somebody else and help.
I think, you know, also that appraisal business, I think in my head, you know, well, it's got appraised, and will it appraise for this much? And I've done some homework on that and all, and it seemed like this house will, that this right now. But like maybe some of the others, I don't think some of those clauses that those houses would have.
And I'll tell you something else on one of these offers. On this first offer sheet, the first offer that came in, he gave us 2 days to respond. And I thought, he gave the seller 2 days to respond, and that hurt him too, because all these other offers came in because the seller had 2 days to respond.
Yeah, no, I thought I could put in one.
Well, and I don't know if Adam is on the call or not, but Adam had one not too long ago where he kept losing with his buyer. He found a buyer a house. When I took him out the first morning it came on, they offered everything the seller was asking for, okay? And he called the agent and he said, my buyer doesn't want to wait. And the agent says, well, there's 2 or 3 other showings tomorrow. And Adam goes, we want an answer today. See if your seller will accept my buyer's offer. It's everything they wanted. It'll stop them. You know, that seller took that offer. He took the offer and stopped the showing. So ask.
Okay.
Don't be afraid to ask.
Yeah. Because like the one that's coming in tomorrow, we put in 2 days ago, and we gave him 1 day. But then there were so many offers coming in that the email came out and it went up on Right, that now we're taking multiple offers, highest and best and all this other stuff. So it like threw mine right out. So
yeah.
Okay, good stuff. Thank you.
I think, Paula, too, when you're working with somebody, you all work with these relocation people. They're not going to wait 2 days.
Yeah.
They're out there looking and they want an answer that day. They're looking or they move on. You know? So I think you have to be forceful a little bit with us, a buyer's agent.
Good to know.
Good stuff,
Melinda?
Paula.
Oh, thank you. Melinda, what else you got to add for us?
I just wanted to add one thing that I've had happen. I had a property, I don't even remember which one it was in the last month, that had 2 offers come in on it. One had an escalation and one did not. My seller took the offer that had the escalation, but we did not enact the escalation clause. So let's discuss that. Paula and Craig, have you all had that happen and why? And then I can add a little bit about why.
Okay. So. I have had that happen, and in many cases, that escalation clause is just a ploy to win, and sometimes it's going to hurt the seller's case more than it's going to help. So we have also done that, not as often in this market, but I have seen that happen before. Right.
I mean, the escalation instances that I've had that we didn't use it, well, we only had 1 offer, or you know, it came in. There's a cash offer. There's an escalation offer with finance.
Yeah.
And they just said, you know what, I'm going to go with the sure thing.
Yeah.
But I will say, make sure that if you don't use it, you take it out of the contract, because we had lenders come back and say, we need the escalation addendum as well now for the contract.
Mhm.
And then that was a shuffle to find, oh God, where did I put that? So yeah.
Yeah.
We had a, in
Go ahead.
Martinsburg, we had one here about 3 weeks ago that was kind of unique. Property market for about 6 months. There'd been a price reduction. I think it was like 400, then they dropped it to 375. 2 offers came in around the $350,000 mark with escalation clauses. The escalation clauses were on different forms. One of them didn't address if it was net or just price.
Oh.
So me and Carrie Whitehead sat there and ran so many different scenarios.
Wow.
It ended up working it out for the price being net. And he took it to the seller, and the seller just said, get rid of the escalation clauses and come back with your highest and best at the end of the day. So, yeah, sometimes that escalation clause doesn't get utilized, but
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know, I'm thinking
So
about
that's,
Go ahead, Melinda.
I just wanted to say that's kind of what happened in my scenario. The second we had wasn't even at full price, so we didn't even counter on that one. We threw out the escalation clause on the second offer, and we countered at a higher price than what was originally offered, and everybody was happy and could have cared less about what the amount was on the escalation.
Mm-hmm. Let me also add that when we're involved in when we're involved in multiple offers that end up that we have the buyer, and we've had that happen, that we've actually had the best offer. When I call the other agents to let them know, I disclose that immediately. And I also disclose when the offers are done that we were the winning bid. Because as soon as that goes in the MLS to close, as soon as they're going to see that, number one. And I have had some of the best conversations with other agents over disclosing, in all honesty, what happened. They really appreciate more than saying, oh, you had inside knowledge. But I'm really seeing agents act entirely more professional in this market than I've seen in markets past with multiple offers. I've had some really good conversations, and some agents that I would be proud to have be on our team if we could get them. Michael.
So I do want to add on our Virginia escalation addendum that we are supposed to fill in the bottom of that of who made the offer, what the terms of the offer was, and you're supposed to provide a copy of the entire offer.
I saw that.
So it's full disclosure all the way around. And I'm hoping that West Virginia is going to keep that in their addendum that they're working on.
It carries on their committee, isn't he? Michael carries on their committee, so should know.
Yes, I put a note over in the chat box. Yeah, Kerry noted that he's on the committee. They just finished that document up, and it should be available in zip forms here really shortly when the EPBR releases it. It is based heavily on the Northern Virginia document. Talk about it in depth, and apparently have made some what they believe to be improvements on that document. So looking forward to see that get
yeah, me too. And Dave Pill is our attorney, so once we make any kind of change to a document, Dave reviews it, and if Dave blesses it, then it's usually pretty good.
Hey, before we wrap it up, Sheila, I just got to give kudos to Debbie Brent and her beautiful cat that's on the back of her chair. I don't know
if you that yet.
This cat's taking a bath. It's
She always hangs out with Debbie on her chair. It's pretty cool.
That's cool. That's very cool. Yeah.
Well, does anybody have any other questions before we do finally wrap it up? We are a little over an hour, about an hour and 9 minutes.
Mm-hmm. I say good job, Paula.
Yes.
This was awesome. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Melinda.
Oh, you're welcome, Sheila.
Craig.
Yeah, everybody. Yeah. If I may, I like I like the visuals, especially based on what the class is going to be. If we have a little material beforehand, it kind of gets our wheels turning and thinking about, you know, discussion and topics. So I think the next class escalation clause?
No, the next week is the superhero CRM or something like that. I don't have the name right in front of me.
Okay.
So, and next week's going to be a 2-hour class. It will not be recorded. So
Okay.
Stephen is going to make sure he announces that if they want to be on it, it will not be recorded.
Okay. Okay.
Michael and June and we are meeting on Friday and going over some topics so we can put out for the next couple months. So if anybody that's on here has topics that they would like to hear our speakers to come in, please let us know so we can talk about it, June, Michael, and myself, on Friday, tomorrow when we meet.
Sheila, I'll send you, we're redeveloping our orientation class with Eastern Panhandle Board, and we just did a new syllabus. I'll send it to you. Maybe there might be something on there that you think might be worthy to do a class on, because